there is a type of man the world does not dare to touch. Not because he is violent, not because he is dominant, not because he threatens anyone, but because he carries something most men spend their lives avoiding. Self-possession. A man who belongs fully to himself is the rarest creature on this earth and the most feared. He cannot be manipulated because he is not hungry for approval. He cannot be controlled because he does not fear being alone. He cannot be pressured because his emotions do not rule him. He cannot be provoked because chaos doesn't reach his core. He is calm in a world that panics. He is quiet in a world that screams. He is disciplined in a world that collapses under impulse. People do not understand him. And what people do not understand, they fear. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise man must always choose a path that keeps him master of his own fate." Most men choose comfort. The untouchable chooses authority over himself, and authority over yourself creates authority over everything around you. Not because you force it, but because people sense it. They sense your stability. They sense your immunity to chaos. They sense your refusal to kneel to their expectations. And suddenly, their tone changes, their behavior shifts, their impulses hesitate. People start treating you with caution, with care, with respect they cannot even explain. Because the truth is simple. The world respects only what it fears to lose or fears to provoke. Most men are easy to provoke, easy to manipulate, easy to emotionally destabilize. And that is why the world never treats them with reverence. A man who is emotionally volatile is a man predictable. And predictable men are easy to control. But a man who cannot be moved, who cannot be rattled, who cannot be pushed into reaction, he becomes a psychological riddle people don't want to solve too closely. He becomes untouchable, not because he hides from the world, but because the world cannot penetrate him. There are 8 rules that build this kind of man. 8 laws that turn a vulnerable human into a fortress. They are not tips, they are not skills, they are not habits. They are transformations, shifts in identity, rewiring of instinct, upgrades of the soul. You are not simply learning these rules, you are becoming them. The world will not adjust for you. People will not suddenly treat you better because you want them to. Life does not soften itself for the gentle. Machiavelli said, "Men will betray you sooner out of love than out of fear." The loved man is vulnerable, softened, accessible, penetrable. The feared man, the untouchable, is protected by the structure of human psychology itself. People do not cross him because crossing him feels dangerous, not physically, not violently, but psychologically expensive. To become untouchable is to become a man whose presence alters the behavior of everyone around him. A man whose stillness carries weight, whose silence forces confession, whose detachment commands respect. To become untouchable is to remove from yourself everything the world uses to break other men. Neediness, impulsiveness, emotional chaos, fear of loss, fear of disapproval, fear of loneliness, fear of boundaries. You cannot be untouchable and fragile. You cannot be untouchable and desperate for validation. You cannot be untouchable and addicted to comfort. This path is sharp. This path is cold. This path is narrow and walked alone. But once you master it, you will see the difference instantly. Men with no control cannot look you in the eyes. Women with weak instincts cannot manipulate your emotions. People who rely on guilt cannot penetrate your mind. You step outside the psychological battlefield where most humans bleed, and you enter a different world. the world of those who carry themselves as if nothing external has the authority to define them. This is the world of the untouchable, and these are the 8 rules that build that kind of man. If you want to become untouchable, start here. With the rule most men fail at. The rule that separates the easily manipulated from the psychologically unshakable do, not react. Reaction is the leash the world uses to pull you. Reaction exposes your weaknesses. Reaction reveals your insecurities. Reaction hands over your power to the person who triggered it. The man who reacts is the man who is controlled. Because the truth is brutal, anyone can control you if they can make you react. A loud voice can make you react. A disrespectful comment can make you react. A woman's emotional storm can make you react. A threat to your ego can make you react. A moment of silence can make you react. A provocation can make you react. And when you react, you lose position. You lose leverage. You lose the psychological high ground. Machiavelli wrote, "The man who cannot master his emotions will be mastered by them." And when your emotions master you, everyone else masters you too. You become readable, predictable, manipulable, weak. The untouchable man is the opposite. He is unreadable, unpredictable, calm under pressure, silent under provocation, still under attack. He does not give the world emotional access to his core. He does not reward aggression with attention. He does not reward chaos with energy. He does not reward manipulation with reaction. He responds only when response changes something. A man who does not react forces the world to reveal itself. When someone cannot shake you, they panic. They expose their intent. They reveal their insecurity. They show their strategy. They confess. Without realizing it, your silence is the interrogation. Your stillness is the mirror. And in that mirror, people see themselves, and it terrifies them. Because most humans fear their own reflection more than they fear you. This is why the first rule is not about strength. It's about containment. The untouchable man contains himself under pressure. He does not throw away control to prove a point. He does not leak emotion to gain sympathy. He does not speak impulsively to fill silence. He does not fight battles that do not advance him. He reacts only with intention, with clarity, with authority. His response is not emotional. His response is strategic. And here is the dark truth no one wants to admit. The less you react, the more dangerous you appear. Because silence is unsettling. Calmness is threatening. Stillness is powerful. Men who cannot control themselves fear men who can. Women who rely on emotional chaos become uncertain around men who are not pulled into it. People who use manipulation lose interest when you don't respond the way they expect. This is power, not the loud kind, not the aggressive kind, not the dramatic kind. The subtle kind, the kind that alters rooms, the kind that bends situations, the kind that forces others to adjust to you. Machiavelli warned, "He who becomes angry at the wrong time commits his own destruction." Most people destroy themselves through their reactions. They reveal too much. They say too much. They let their emotions spill into the hands of others. The untouchable man doesn't spill. He absorbs, he observes, he pauses, he processes, and then, only if necessary, he responds. But his response comes from strength, not from impulse, from clarity, not from fear, from control, not from insecurity. This rule alone can change your life, because once you stop reacting, you stop bleeding. People stop treating you like emotional prey. The world stops pushing you to see if you will crack. And your presence takes on a different density, a weight other men lack and women crave. There is a saying in old strategy, if they cannot move you, they must move around you. And that is the beginning of true psychological power. This is rule 1, the foundation. Do not react. Absence is a weapon that almost no one uses, not because it's complicated, but because it requires strength most men do not possess. The strength to remove yourself, to not always be available, to not always answer, to not always show up, to not always explain, to not always justify, to not always be present when the world demands you. Availability makes you cheap. Absence makes you valuable. It is human nature. We respect what we can lose, not what we have unlimited access to. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Men esteem most what is taken from them. When you are always present, people begin to treat your presence as a resource, renewable, predictable, replaceable. You become background noise, a default option, a constant supply, and nothing that is constant is ever feared, respected, or desired. But when you master absence, thoughtful, intentional absence, your value multiplies. People start to feel your silence, your distance, your disappearance. Your presence becomes rare, and rarity creates power. Not because you dominate, but because you refuse to be consumed. Absence reshapes psychology. When you step back, people step forward. When you go quiet, people start thinking. When you stop giving, people start remembering. Absence activates the mind in a way presence never can. People replay your words. People analyze your expressions. People search for your patterns. People question their behavior. People fear they have miscalculated. Absence triggers reflection, self-doubt, respect, sometimes even obsession. Because when someone cannot access you, they overthink you. The world hates uncertainty, and absence is the purest form of uncertainty. It makes people feel the weight of their own actions. Nothing reveals who someone truly is faster than your absence. The manipulative will panic. The insecure will chase. The weak will collapse. The arrogant will reveal their ego. The loyal will stay. The wise will understand. Absence is a filter. Presence is a gift, not a default. Most men give their presence like they give their breath, automatically without thought. They answer instantly. They show up immediately. They explain excessively. They justify emotionally. They give energy to anyone who demands it. And then they wonder why no one respects them. Presence must be earned. Your time must be earned. Your attention must be earned. Your energy must be earned. A man who gives everything is valued by no one. A man who gives selectively is valued by all. Absence is not escape. It is control. Weak men disappear because they are overwhelmed. Strong men disappear because they are intentional. The untouchable man's absence is never emotional. It is strategic. He steps back not to retreat, but to reset the dynamic, to reground himself, to regain perspective, to allow the other side to reveal their intentions, to watch what happens without his influence, because what people do when you are not around is the truth. What people do when they no longer have access to you is their real face. And most men never see this truth because they are always present, always available, always in the middle of the noise. Absence removes the noise. Absence lets motives float to the surface. Absence exposes the reality behind the performance. Absence creates fear of loss. Not fear of you, but fear of losing access to you. And that fear is one of the deepest forms of respect. People fear losing what centers them. People fear losing what stabilizes them. People fear losing what gives them certainty. When you are present, they forget your value. When you withdraw, they remember it instantly. Absence is not distance. It is gravity. It pulls on others because they cannot pull on you. It shifts power without a word. It reinforces boundaries without conflict. It strengthens respect without force. It creates desire without manipulation. The man who masters absence does not chase. He does not beg. He does not explain. He does not pressure. He removes himself and lets the world rearrange around the empty space he leaves behind. This is rule 2, the power most men fear to use, because they fear being forgotten. But the truth is simple. The man who fears being forgotten will always be forgettable. The man who is not afraid to disappear will never disappear from the minds of others. There is no faster way to make yourself weak, predictable, and manipulable than to depend on approval. The need to be liked is the birth of all weakness. The need to be understood is the birth of all insecurity. The need to be accepted is the birth of all compromise. And the need to be validated is the birth of all manipulation. When others control your approval, they control you. Machiavelli warned clearly, "He who seeks to please will soon be ruined." Because a man who needs approval is a man who can be shaped, bent, redirected, punished, rewarded, trained. He becomes a pet for the expectations of others. Most men don't live, they perform. Their entire existence is a reaction to what they think will make them liked. They betray their truth to protect their image. They silence their voice to avoid being judged. They soften their presence to avoid conflict. They chase approval as if it will save them. But approval never saves. Approval enslaves. Approval addiction is the root of all manipulation. People manipulate the man who wants to be liked. People test the man who wants to be seen as good. People use the man who wants to be accepted. People disrespect the man who wants validation. Humans can smell neediness the same way wolves smell blood. And nothing invites predators like a man who bleeds for external validation. The untouchable man cuts the vein. He does not starve for attention. He does not beg for reassurance. He does not soften himself to avoid disapproval. He allows people to dislike him. Read that again. He allows people to dislike him. He is willing to be misunderstood. He is willing to be unpopular. He is willing to stand alone. He is willing to lose connections rather than lose integrity. This is why the untouchable man cannot be controlled. You cannot manipulate a man who does not need anything from you. Approval is a currency of the weak. Approval is dangerous because it creates debt. When you want approval, you start to pay for it. With compliance, with kindness you don't feel, with silence you don't agree with sacrifice that harms you. You turn into someone performing a version of yourself. A polite puppet, a smiling mask, a diluted soul. A man who chases approval will always bend a man who does not, will always rise. Machiavelli understood this. It is better to be thought harsh than to appear weak. Weakness invites predators. Harshness invites respect. Approval is the religion of the weak. Self-respect is the religion of the untouchable. Detach from approval equals reclaim your mind. When you stop needing approval, something powerful happens. You stop fearing judgment. You stop filtering your truth. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop diluting your presence. You stop shrinking yourself to fit expectations. You start operating from intention, not insecurity. Your voice grows colder. Your posture grows sharper. Your decisions grow cleaner. You begin to say no without fear. You begin to walk away without guilt. You begin to choose yourself without asking for permission. And people notice, not because you become rude, but because you become sovereign. A man who no longer asks for emotional permission terrifies those who built a life on external validation. Your detachment exposes their dependence. Your self-possession exposes their fragmentation. Your emotional independence exposes their weakness. This is why detaching from approval is not simply an act of strength. It is an act of separation. You leave behind the world of dependent men, and you enter the world of men who own themselves. Approval becomes irrelevant when you become undeniable. The untouchable man does not seek approval because he no longer needs it. People respect him because they sense that he does not chase their respect. People admire him because he is immune to admiration. People follow him because he does not ask to be followed. People fear losing him because he does not fear losing them. This is the paradox. The less you need approval, the more power you gain. Approval is cheap. Self-respect is priceless. Detach from approval, and you detach from everything that controls ordinary men. This is Rule 3, a rule most will never master because they fear being disliked. But the truth is simple. You cannot be untouchable and addicted to approval. Choose one. Nothing reveals weakness faster than too many words, and nothing creates power faster than silence. Most men talk because they fear the weight of their own quiet. They talk to fill the air. They talk to feel important. They talk to escape discomfort. They talk to impress. They talk to justify. They talk to explain. They talk so others don't misunderstand them. But a man who talks too much is a man who exposes too much, and exposure is vulnerability. Machiavelli understood the danger of speaking. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally, meaning the wise man acts with precision, not with noise. A man who speaks endlessly tries to convince. A man who speaks little forces others to interpret, to guess, to wonder. To overthink silence is a psychological weapon. When you speak less, people reveal more. Most conversations are traps disguised as curiosity. People ask to extract information, to probe your weaknesses, to test your reactions, to measure your emotional triggers, to study your patterns. The more you talk, the easier you are to read. The less you talk, the more they must reveal to keep the conversation alive. If you stay quiet, they will fill the silence with their own thoughts, their own fears, their own insecurities. They will confess what you did not ask. They will expose what you did not need to search for. Your silence becomes a confession booth for others, and they will walk away feeling like they opened up, when in truth, you simply let them speak until their truth surfaced. Silence multiplies your presence. A man who speaks less is not invisible. He is heavier. Every word carries weight because it is rare. Every sentence feels deliberate because it is intentional. Every comment lands harder because it is not polluted by unnecessary explanation. A silent man is not weak. A silent man is unreadable, and unreadable is untouchable. Humans fear what they cannot decode. They fear what they cannot predict. They fear what they cannot influence. And nothing is harder to influence than a man who does not speak impulsively. Machiavelli warned rulers, better to appear reserved than to open. Openness invites intrusion. Silence invites respect. Say less, and you become mysterious. Mysterious is not a personality trait. It is a lack of exposure. When you talk too much, People categorize you, label you, predict you, define you, control you. But when you speak little, you cannot be categorized, you cannot be labeled, you cannot be predicted, you cannot be controlled. People project onto you. They imagine who you are. They build stories around your silence, and your silence becomes their obsession. Mystery is the shadow cast by disciplined silence. Talking less prevents emotional mistakes. Every emotional collapse starts with a mouth that spoke too soon. Men lose respect because they talk when angry. Men lose power because they talk when insecure. Men lose authority because they talk to explain themselves. Talking reveals your emotional state, and emotional exposure is the fastest path to manipulation. If they know what bothers you, they can use it. If they know what excites you, they can bait you. If they know what scares you, they can pressure you. But if you speak less, your emotions stay inside, untouched, unexposed, undefended, safe. Your silence is your armor. The man who talks less controls the frame. Every interaction has a frame, a psychological direction that someone controls. The talkative man follows the frame. The silent man sets the frame. A man who talks reacts to the environment. A man who listens shapes the environment. People adjust to silence. People bend to silence. People reveal themselves to silence. This is why the most powerful men rarely speak first. And when they do, every word feels final. Say less than necessary, always. Not because silence is comfortable, but because silence is control. Talking is easy. Silence is mastery. This is Rule 5. Your inner world is the battlefield where all external outcomes are decided. If you are chaotic inside, the world will dominate you. If you are calm inside, the world cannot touch you. This is one of the most brutal truths men ignore. You are not defeated by life. You are defeated by the reaction you have to life. Your outer world is simply a reflection of the storms you have not mastered. Within a man who is emotionally unsettled cannot build stability. A man who is mentally noisy cannot build clarity. A man who is spiritually fragile cannot build power. You cannot be untouchable if you are at war with yourself. Machiavelli wrote, "He who conquers himself conquers everything." Most men conquer nothing because they never conquer themselves. They chase distractions. They chase pleasure. They chase validation. They chase noise. They chase escape. All because they fear being alone with the truth of their own mind. The untouchable man does not escape his mind. He masters it. Control begins with awareness. You cannot control what you cannot detect. Most people live in emotional autopilot. They don't feel, they react. Anger controls them. Impulses control them. Fear controls them. Ego controls them. Insecurity controls them. They are puppets for their own unexamined emotions. But the untouchable man is aware. He senses the rise of anger before it explodes. He senses the pull of fear before it tightens. He senses the spark of ego before it burns. Awareness creates choice. Choice creates control. Control creates power. If your emotions are accessible, you are not a man who cannot control his inner world as a man the world will use. If they can trigger you, they own you. If they can provoke you, they direct you. If they can guilt you, they guide you. If they can flatter you, they manipulate you. If they can shame you, they silence you. This is why controlling your inner world is not optional. It is survival. The untouchable man is not emotionless, he is unshakable. His emotions are contained, disciplined, channeled and expressed when they serve him, not when they control him. He does not lose it. He does not explode. He does not break. His emotional world is behind walls. Few can enter, and no one can destroy. Control your mind, or someone else will. There are men who control their thoughts, their impulses, their reactions, their attention, and there are men whose minds are controlled by the environment, by social media, by other people, by their past, by fear, by stimulation, by weakness. Machiavelli observed, men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. If you cannot control yourself, you will live under one of these impulses forever. The untouchable man controls neither love nor fear. He controls himself. That is why nothing can truly control him. Inner silence is stronger than outer noise. Most people panic when their surroundings become chaotic. The untouchable man does not. Because his internal world is stronger than the storm outside. He moves slowly when others rush. He breathes deeply when others choke. He pauses when others collapse. He thinks when others break. Calmness is not a personality trait. Calmness is a skill. Calmness is power. Calmness is clarity. Calmness is intimidation. People trust the man who remains centered when everyone else is falling apart. People fear the man whose inner world they cannot shake. Control your inner world, and you can control any room. There is a moment in every interaction when emotional tension rises. Most men crumble. Most men break. Most men lose frame. But the man who controls himself controls the moment. And the man who controls the moment controls the room. This is why the untouchable man feels different. People sense the silence behind his eyes, the stillness beneath his voice, the unshakable ground beneath his presence. A man like this cannot be touched, because nothing inside him is loose enough to grab. This is Rule 6. Control your inner world, or be controlled by the outer. Every man fears one thing more than loneliness, more than failure, more than humiliation: being replaced. Replaced at work, replaced in relationships, replaced in friendships, replaced socially, replaced emotionally. This fear is the root of male weakness. Men tolerate disrespect because they fear being replaced. Men chase low-quality people because they fear being replaced. Men cling, beg, justify, adjust because they fear being replaced. Here is the brutal truth. You are replaceable the moment you start acting like it. When you try too hard, you become cheap. When you cling, you become disposable. When you lower your standards, you become forgettable. And forgettable men get replaced quickly. The untouchable man, however, has a different philosophy. He never positions himself as replaceable. Not in value, not in mindset, not in presence, not in skill, not in energy. He becomes a man that cannot simply be swapped out for someone else. He upgrades himself to the point where losing him hurts. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince must build himself so that he cannot be easily removed." This applies to men just as much as rulers. If you want to be untouchable, you must make yourself psychologically, emotionally, socially, and strategically irreplaceable. 1. Irreplaceable men do not imitate, they differentiate. Most men do the same things, same habits, same hobbies, same mindset, same conversations, same weaknesses. Standing out is easy when everyone is identical. The untouchable man does not imitate others. He does not blend in. He does not mimic trends. He builds a personality so unique that trying to replace him is a downgrade. Uniqueness creates magnetism. Magnetism creates value. Value creates fear of loss. 2. Irreplaceable men master what others avoid. The world avoids discipline, silence, restraint, depth, self-command. emotional stability, strategic thinking. You master these. You become rare. People cannot replace what they cannot find again. Weak men attempt to stand out through noise. Strong men stand out through discipline. The difference is huge. Noise attracts attention. Discipline attracts respect. 3. Irreplaceable men walk away cleanly. Here's a psychological secret. The most irreplaceable men are the ones who can leave at any moment. The man who can walk away without drama, without desperation, without emotional collapse, terrifies people. Because walking away is not a skill of abundance, it is a skill of power. Most people cling out of fear. The untouchable man detaches out of clarity, and that clarity is what makes him irreplaceable. People fear losing the man who does not fear losing them. 4. Irreplaceable men create impact, not presence. Presence fades. Impact stays. People forget who was around them, but they never forget who changed them. A single sentence from an irreplaceable man can echo for years. A single interaction can shift someone's trajectory. A single boundary can redefine a relationship. A single absence can shake someone awake. When you move people psychologically, emotionally, philosophically, you become unforgettable, and the unforgettable cannot be replaced. 5 irreplaceable men develop a signature energy, not charisma, not charm, energy. A way of being that others cannot replicate, calmness that others cannot fake, depth that others cannot imitate, standards that others cannot maintain, stillness that others cannot reach, self-respect that others cannot break. People become attached to the feeling they get in your presence because it is rare. Scarcity creates psychological dependence. You become the benchmark, everyone else becomes a downgrade. Here is the ultimate truth. People don't replace men who change the way they see themselves. People don't replace men who elevate the room simply by entering it. People don't replace men who are disciplined, rare, dangerous, silent, purposeful, and self-contained. People don't replace men who are impossible to categorize and harder to access. People don't replace men whose absence breaks the pattern of their life. If you want to be irreplaceable, stop trying to be liked and start being valuable. Stop trying to fit in and start building what others do not have. Stop trying to be everything to everyone and become the one thing no one else can replicate. This is Rule 7. Become a man whose loss feels like a collapse. A man whose replacement feels like an insult. A man whose presence feels like a privilege. A man who is impossible to replace